hello to you. Thank you for being here. So, you're about to join Jane Alexander and myself, Tash Mitch, as we ex- do a dive into light work. So, the session that we're actually involved with here is a light work session where we're essentially sending light into dense areas that we might be experiencing or that might be experienced on a collective level. And we've also had people who've actually sent through from IE, have sent through areas that they're working with, so that we're able to do some light work on that as well. We have these sessions every 2 weeks. And in this particular part of the session, Jane is bringing forward something, and I'm so incredibly glad that she shared it, because very often as light workers, as energy workers, as people that are doing the work with a different kind of frequency, a different kind of vibration than what is recognized, can feel the repercussions of that. Can feel that sort of sense of being misunderstood or almost like being attacked, really. And then because it feels so personal to us, we assume that is a personal story. And when we share it, we realize that there's a collective story and a universal story in the midst of that. And here you're about to see that sharing of Jane's personal story, and also the integrating of the collective and the shared story in the midst of that. So join us in real time.
Like I've had this ongoing drama going on for months around, kind of people being essentially quite mean and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it's continued.
Yeah.
If anything, it upped its ante this last fortnight. So I've sort of
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's got worse.
Wow.
So, but no, it's okay. But I'm handling it better. But I've been but it's all come down to this thing about that experience of having my contribution negated, which is essentially what you're saying, isn't it? So it's almost like this thing. So often when I'm I'm sharing from the place inside me that's essentially most vulnerable and maybe most truthful. And then what happens is I instantly manifest somebody that just says, no, that's not, and just is so essentially triggered by it, I think, and that they're then aggressive or dismissive. And it's and just feeling that this last fortnight has been about dealing with what is inside me that is prepared to sell out my contribution to avoid those sorts of experiences. And I feel like I'm like 2/3 of the way through that. It feels like I've got a bit left. And I think it's feeding my fear of really, really being out there in a bigger way. That essentially I create containers, safe, small containers. Well, what I do within them is powerful, but I create containers that are manageable. And realizing that I'm called beyond that. And it's just so it's it's making peace with the call. And just sort of this last part of the shame that I carry for having a perspective that's different. And it's how the truth works through me. It's this it's this slight tangential thing that I am, that I do, because I even feel that within the IE group, which this is not at all critical, but it's I know I slightly sit on a tangent, and that's not a rejection.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
It's it's literally just the way my thoughts work and the way my guidance comes and the way I perceive it. It's like the way I fit in is just by being slightly to one side almost. And it's not, and sometimes I think I worry that gets perceived as a rejection. And it's not, it really isn't. I'm not rejecting anything. It's just the way it's like, I think just the way wisdom comes through me is just like it's tangential. It's like it opens a sideways window into whatever it is that it is. And that's the same with when I'm healing with somebody, you know, like my clients often say, you've just turned my perspective on its head. You know, and it's like, and that's kind of like sort of how it works in me. I think I've got that slightly, you know, kind of sort of really, it's kind of Kali energy a bit, you know, and I can feel inside myself there's this profound creative force, but I think because I'm limiting it, the part that comes out is the destructive aspect of the creative cycle. And so what often happens is I'm often breaking things down, which then reveals wisdom for people and myself and stuff. But I've got this sneaky suspicion that when this last part of this has gone, that will allow there to be like a greater creative force to come through. I think, and that's just what I'm feeling like at the edges. And there's just a lot of pain. There's a lot of like sorrow and a lot of you know, fear of retribution. I think that sort of is the block. And like I was feeling into how like I was doing some work this morning and self-work this morning, and I was just starting to see how I've got this little belief structure that is built on I'm like ashamed of my awareness, and I experience my awareness as something that separates me from people, and there's no like that's not real. I know it's not real, but it's very powerful, and I think that's why I attract detractors, if you like, who want to shame me. You know, because essentially I'm ashamed.
There's an expectation there, and so the expectation always bears fruit, right? Because you're a powerful creator for sure. I hear you. And I'm seeing what was the YouTube thing that you sent forward? What was his name?
Adyashanti. Adyashanti, it means primordial peace.
Adyashanti. So I was seeing him, like what he was talking about was so profound, where basically you've got the one, which is the individual one, and then the one which is the collective one, and how we're continuously oscillating, let's say, consciously between those two realities, and it's the reality of duality, right? But the one that's the individual one, because what you're describing feels very personal, and it feels very you, and it feels very individual, but you're still describing something that I feel, even though there is a personal element to it for you, but I feel it's a story of all light workers and energy workers and healers. I feel like what you're speaking about isn't simply universally individual. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like it's not just yours. It's a collective story as well. And so in the midst of listening to you, I can recognize that within myself as well, you know? That sort of sense of bringing through a frequency that is not commonplace in the collective, and then being seen by the collective as holding something really weird, and then having that reflection being acted out, you know, where you're seemingly standing alone in the midst of a group of people constantly, you know. So there's a sense of isolation and there's a sense of aloneness with it. I recognize that story. So even though you're experience of it is definitely yours, and it's not taking away from that in any way.
No, I know you're not. Yeah, and I can hear that. Yeah,
it's something that it's something that's recognized by anybody who has that story of bringing through a new paradigm, you know. And then it becomes a bit like, okay, so how does it work as the individual one in the collective one, you know? And how does it work in a way that I'm not manifesting? Yeah, what's the word? It's not even manifesting, right? Because it's a bit like the same Adishanti thing that where he was saying that Jesus basically didn't really stand there going, "Does everybody like me?" Do you know what I mean? You know, it's kind of like, okay, well, you're allowed not to agree. You're allowed not to guess it. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, because that's essentially it, isn't it? It's the giving of permission for people to not get you, or to not get it, whatever it is.
Yes. Yeah.